committee. We've done about 10 meetings, and this is the first, so that is a good thing. Now going to regular agenda items. We have 3 sets of minutes from prior meetings. They look fine to me. Councilmember Villegas, not sure if you had a time to review them.
I reviewed and I approve.
Okay.
Move to pass.
So I'll take that as a motion. I will second. Without objection, the minutes for the meetings of September 12th, October 2nd, and October 10th are approved. Next, we'll move to item number 4, which is an update on police officer recruitment and hiring. Manager Carroll will be making that presentation. Welcome back.
Great, thank you. And thanks for this opportunity to provide you an update on where we're at with our police officer hiring. Again, just an overview on our staffing numbers. As far as sworn positions, we have 369 funded positions within the general fund, 11 positions in special revenue funds, which includes 7 in the Civic Center and 4 downtown. And we have 3 in grant accounts, which includes our UASI program and over at our PAL Center, for a total of 383 total sworn positions, and that's from the chief down to police officer. We have 325 of those positions filled, which leaves 58 vacancies. And if you recall, last time we met here in September, that number was 64 vacancies. So we have made some progress, which I'm happy to report. Also happy to report that the 325 positions that are filled, that's the highest that we've had since 2011. So definitely making progress. Obviously still a lot of work to do, and we're still working on ways to hire even faster, but definitely showing some progress there.
Do you know how many we had in 2011?
I believe it's 342.
Okay, thank you.
And also, this is where we're at as far as our academy and the FTO program. As of October 31st, we had 14 recruits in the academy, 3 in class 228, which graduated last week. Those 3 have moved on to the FTO program. And we got 8 in class 229, 3 in class 230, 13 in the field training program, so for a total of 27 at various stages of the academy and the FTO program. Total hires to date, we have 32, which includes 17 police recruits, 11 laterals, and 4 returning police officers. And we have an additional 6 in the pipeline that we're hoping to hire by the end of the year, including 5 police recruits and 1 lateral. To date, we've had 22 separate, and which is lower than last year. Last year, in 2016 overall, we had 30 separate. December could be one of the busier months for separations, but and this time during the holidays. But we're still thinking we're going to have lower than usual separations, and of course the recent we believe the recent POA MOU has something to do with that. People are we're hoping will stick around longer.
Okay, can you repeat the separation?
Yes, 22.
22, okay.
So we're anticipating netting in the range of 12 to 16 by the end of the calendar year, which is going to be about the same as we had last year. And last year was a very good year. Again, a lot of room for improvement, and we're still working hard, but the last couple of years have been better than normal. Over the last few months, we've highlighted several areas, including the various lists of process improvements and things that we've done to improve the hiring process. We talked about our census campaign and the marketing and advertising. And at tonight's meeting, I just wanted to share a little bit about, just share this list of recruitment events that we've attended in 2017. just to show that this is just another element, another tool, if you will, when it comes to our recruitment strategy, is attending these various events and talking to individuals. You'll see there's several military recruitment events on here, events at the local colleges and so forth. And then we have a couple of events that that are slated on the calendar as well before the end of the year that we're hoping to attend. Lastly, wanted to mention that with the support of Chief Valentine, we've identified a new recruitment team leader, Corporal Oscar Lazardi, who's going to start in his new assignment December 1st. This is a position that we haven't had in quite a while, so we believe it's going to have a big impact on our recruitment efforts. This person will be leading or be responsible for coordinating department-wide recruitment efforts. We'll be monitoring and adjusting the department's overall recruitment strategy and having a lot of input on that. Coordinating department-wide recruitment efforts in terms of the events and getting officers together that can work the events and scheduling and signing up for those events and so forth. And we'll also be participating in monthly recruitment meetings and basically everything related to recruitment he'll be a part of. Oscar's been around a long time, knows a lot of people both within our agency and others, so we believe he's going to have a very positive impact. In addition, Chief Valentine has approved the transferring of a senior office assistant position, currently a vacant position, over to our backgrounds unit to assist in backgrounds. The backgrounds investigators spend a lot of their time doing clerical work. So it's, with this new addition, they'll spend less time doing clerical work and more time doing actual backgrounds and hiring people at a faster rate. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Great. Excellent presentation. I have probably more comments than questions. First, in terms of the outreach, I think it's excellent. We hadn't seen that before, so that's really good. Something that isn't clear from there, but I would think goes hand in hand with some of the college-related outreach that you're doing is, there are a pretty substantial number of students that major in criminal justice.
Right.
And so maybe we could be doing more outreach to those professors or students or department-specific things. We may already.
Well,
but maybe if you could speak a little bit to
definitely, and this is something that Corporal Lazardi, now that we have a full-time recruitment coordinator, will be able to spend time doing. And not only going out and just visiting and touching on these classes, but actually reestablishing those relationships that the Santa Ana PD once had with the junior colleges, the programs, the professors, the staff, and getting to know them on a first name basis, and same thing with the academies. Making sure that if there are really good candidates in the academy that are not sponsored, that we're the first agency that they're calling to get them on board. So we're really looking forward to having Corporal Lazardi here and him helping us out.
Excellent. Great to hear. I also do want to thank the chief in the department. I know we made some modifications to the park ranger job classification and what type of training that they could come in with, and so I think that hopefully will be helpful a little bit. So thanks for that. On a related note, and maybe again with this new recruitment person and working with our chief, I think there might be some positions, whether they be kind of research of a research investigative nature, or some traffic officer spots where maybe they don't need to carry a gun. So I'd really like the department to kind of look really closely at that. And number one, sometimes just from a skill point of view, especially with research and technology and computers, you could do a lot behind a laptop. Or I know traditionally, departments use things like social media to learn about situations or study that. And so, really to be good at that and know that, you don't necessarily need to be post certified. And I think in the past, there were some traffic officers that, is my understanding, some years ago did not carry a gun. And so we may be able to get more folks out there quicker, as well as, frankly, both salary costs and pension costs. In some cases, we may be able to get to staff persons for the price of one officer. And so I do want to just have the department be creative in doing that for efficiency, for cost savings, having more personnel out there. But, the other reality, too, I think, with all the surrounding agencies also doing humongous recruitment efforts, it has been challenging to fill the vacancies that we have. I do think that we are doing quite well. Last calendar year, I think we recruited 43. This year, it sounds like we're looking at 38. So, hopefully next year, we can be, 43. And I know we didn't necessarily have a clear goal for how many this calendar year, but, with the new recruitment lead, maybe they can also set a goal for next year and, hopefully a bigger goal so we can continue to work against those vacancies. I think those are, and again, really they're more comments, but good job. We're making some progress, and I do like that we're at 325 positions. That at least for this point in time is the most that we've had on hand, at least since 2011. So that's a good thing. Councilmember Villegas.
Yes, a quick question. How many are we projected to lose this year?
We've had 22 leave so far this calendar year. It's hard to tell because they don't always announce in advance, but we're hoping somewhere. We hope it doesn't rise above 25 or so. Last year we lost 30.
We've been losing an average of 28 to 30, I think, for the last few years. Just want to know where we were at. And I asked this last time, and no one could give me a number. How many do we have IOD right now?
Can you translate that for us lay
Injured
people?
on duty.
Okay.
Sorry, injured on duty.
Yeah, I don't have that number handy.
I asked for it last time, and no one got back to me. So just
Well, I apologize that nobody got back to you, council member. It's a average. There's probably about a dozen on any given day. Some shorter term, some longer term. But of that, from that 325, you gotta basically take off about a dozen that are injured on duty.
right, and then some of them don't come back. Some of them do come back.
Right.
And that's why I asked that to see. Sometimes the number is more than 20. So this number's not accurate. So every time I look at that, I always remember, hey, we got guys who are not on. They're on the books, but they're not in the field. They're not working because they're out.
You're correct.
Okay.
Most of them do come back full duty. There's a small number that actually have to be medically retired, but most of them do come back. Risk management puts out an update, and I'll make sure that information gets to you.
Great, thank you. And why? So we just got our recruiter back. Thank God. What happened to that position prior to this?
So
was
I'll answer that.
Taken out.
So it's about making choices, and so it's been many years, probably 10 plus, 15 plus years since we had a full-time asset dedicated to recruitment efforts. So even though I realize we don't have our full TO today, we have to make an investment in order to make progress. So from the current cadre of officers, decided to allocate the one position. He is a corporal, so he can serve as a supervisor also of the background units, but also really do what I call the non-traditional recruitment, come out from behind the table. You talk about colleges. One of the pieces that isn't here on this list is when was the last time we had direct reach at Santa Ana College. There's, last I looked, about 12 core courses in criminal justice and various other electives. So what I mean by direct reach is actually have this officer have FaceTime. Reach out to the criminal justice instructors and see when he can make direct presentations. It's about a human connection and selling this place. And I don't think it's too hard to sell this place, quite frankly. So that's part of the investment. In addition to that is really retooling background investigations so that they are strictly doing the processing, and we have someone out in the field doing the recruitment. He will be augmented by other officers that are needed as well, depending on the size and scope of the recruitment event. But the additional clerical will also help so that we don't have background investigators sending out mailers, following up on letters, et cetera.
Right, the clerk's doing the clerks, the
Right.
recruiter doing the recruiting, and the background unit doing the investigations.
Exactly.
And everyone's concentrated on their scope of duty. So how many years has it been then? So it's,
Since we've had a recruitment officer
A
full-time.
I mean, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I was in charge of human resources in 2006, and we did not have one then.
Okay,
So
I
that's-
remember
that's,
20-something years ago,
12
thanks,
plus.
Chief, 20-something years ago, seeing a Santa Ana officer coming into Santa Ana College when I was there in one of my classes, looking sharp, and he came
Right.
out and people talk. And I'll say this, like I've said in every committee meeting that we've had, that what's better than billboards, better than TV ads, what's better is word of mouth. In this business, and I'll keep saying it, better pay, better benefits, a department with a high morale, that attracts people. Because in this business, people talk. Everybody, that wants to get into law enforcement, they talk to officers or people in public safety. Where should I go? Which department is going through problems and which one is not? Which one pays well? That's what gets out. And then they get direction from there. Where should I apply? So that is, to me, that's my, that's the best way to get people to apply. That's my take on it. But anyway, so thank you very much on the update. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Very good. Some good progress, and we'll keep it going. Maybe at an upcoming meeting for this segment, that recruitment staffer can come and introduce
Absolutely.
himself.
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic. For item number 5, presentation on shot spotter technology. This isn't meant to be a decision on whether we move forward with this technology or not. But I know that company representatives have been trying to make individual presentations to council members and key staff, and it made sense really to have a presentation here so that more folks could see it all at once rather than separately, because there had been some challenges. I do know that initially the idea was always that the company would present the technology, but I think our department also has some insights, some information, so they want to present some slides as well. Chief, I don't know if you have a sense of which one you'd like to go first, but
Yes. So just as a disclaimer for everyone, I have personally had an opportunity to review the presentation by ShotSpotter representatives. I understand it's an overview, general information. So we'll go ahead and have you present first. And
Well, I
then,
think the way to do it, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is a couple things. One, I think you guys have a presentation on the technology. I actually just brought folks here to answer some questions.
Okay.
And I think what we'll do is reserve our time, with your forbearance, to have a more formal presentation when our CEO is here. He's actually at the Tallahassee Legislature. I know you know what that's like, trying to get back. So I think ultimately what we'd like to do is answer some questions, any questions that folks have. But at some point, we really would like to have, if possible, our CEO come up and make a full presentation to the council, to the public, and more importantly, who you feel would be appropriate. So we'll reserve, you have a very long agenda as well. So we will just try to save some time, answer questions after your presentation, and hopefully, with your forbearance, come back and give a longer presentation. And we will get that information to the city attorney, to the clerk, a month ahead of time, so you'll have plenty of time to review it as well.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
There is no item on the agenda in terms of making a recommendation to move it to the full city council. So today, my recommendation would be for just a presentation.
Right, and
Thank you.
that's what I said in my opening comments
Yes.
as well. Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, there's no idea here that we're going to make any recommendations or decisions regarding this technology. So we'll hear then that the presentation that was put forward by the department. No guarantees that there will be a future presentation, but I know that I have discussed previously with the ShotSpotter Technologies that I'd actually like to have our League of Cities have a program on various technologies, including this one. And Chief, I'd like your suggestions on if we do have something like that, because I think like every quarter they have a program where they invite elected officials and staff from all the cities in Orange County, and so I'd like this presentation to be made there, and maybe there's some other technologies as well, whether it be on body worn cameras or street cameras or anything else, because I think all cities really spend a substantial amount of dollars on public safety, and unfortunately it's rare that I think the League of Cities does presentations on that. So
Okay.
I did want to share that as well. So let's go ahead and Chief, if you can announce who will be making this presentation, that would be great.
Commander Gaminsky will present. Go ahead, Ken.
Good evening, City Council members. We're here to discuss ShotSpotter, which is a gunfire location alert and analysis service. In essence, ShotSpotter is gunshot detection using acoustic surveillance technology, which utilizes sensors to detect, locate, and alert law enforcement agencies to gunfire. In essence, we're talking about having very, very sensitive microphones that are placed in strategic locations, and then they record the sound of a gunshot, and then using triangulation technology that is specific to ShotSpotter, can tell exactly where the gunshot came from, as well as how many shots were fired. After a shot is fired, specialists from ShotSpotter will evaluate that sound to ensure that it is either gunfire, the type of gunfire it is, the type of caliber weapon, the even direction that the person carrying the gun and continuing to fire, or the vehicle that the gun was fired out of, the direction that that person or that gun is actually heading. The timeliness of their response, based on our evaluation, is very timely. They have very, very good reputations within the industry in being able to identify what is a shot versus what is a firework or a backfire from a vehicle. And again, they have a good representation within the industry as to what they say they'll do, they do. So, several individuals from the police department have met with ShotSpotter representatives on several different occasions. It started back with discussions with Commander Eric Paulson. He met with them on several occasions. I've met with representatives from ShotSpotter on several occasions as well. Upon initial assessment, there is an understanding that this technology would undoubtedly improve public relations based on a public awareness or media campaign that the city would engage in to alert everybody to the new technology. We believe that would in fact enhance public relations. On the other side, we look at limited investigative success or capabilities. We do understand that this technology is an added tool for investigations. It does actually assist in the realistic solvability of crimes. However, use cases are a difficulty for us at this time. For example, if a incident was to occur where shots were fired into the air and officers respond, as we do now, we would in fact be in a position to collect a shell casing or document witness statements. But without witness statements, the shell casing itself and the collection of it as evidence will not allow us to further an investigative case. Even if that bullet has a fingerprint on it, we can't actually prove that the fingerprint for the person that fired the weapon is the same person whose fingerprint is on the bullet or was the one that pulled the trigger. Again, both myself and Commander Paulson have met with ShotSpotter. We have had informal discussions with police departments from Fresno, Sacramento, and Bell Gardens. Subsequently, based on a request from I believe it was the former acting chief, there was a request for us to provide what ShotSpotter technology might look like if it was utilized within the city of Santa Ana. What areas would we as a police department be interested in having ShotSpotter coverage? ShotSpotter submitted a proposal which was evaluated. Identified desired outcomes still need to be evaluated. From the police department's point of view, to determine metrics, we're still in search of what a successful deployment of ShotSpotter would look like. What is it that the city would be interested in having? If, in fact, we're looking at ShotSpotter technology as a way to drive down gun violence, we're not exactly sure how that would be evaluated. Or just shots fired in general. Again, we believe that more formal discussions and analysis with current cities and end users of the entire system would be valuable. And there is a possibility that in order to find out what this would look like for us, site visits might be necessary. When I sit down and I look at ShotSpotter technology in general, I break things down into pros and cons. The pros, without a doubt, I believe there will be an increased amount of reporting because ShotSpotter will report, I believe, the total volume of gunfire that is discharged within this city. I believe at this time that activity is extremely underreported. I also believe that we will be in a position to increase our evidence collection of expended cartridges. That will, in fact, be able to be put into the automated firearm system for us to track where guns are used throughout the city. It has been stated by ShotSpotter, and I truly agree with them. When gunfire occurs and law enforcement doesn't respond, there can be a feeling within the community that law enforcement doesn't care. I agree with ShotSpotter wholeheartedly that if ShotSpotter reports a shot fired and law enforcement does respond, over time, public trust will be enhanced. I also believe that following a ShotSpotter deployment, based on their analytical tools, investigations following shootings would have that added investigative resource where we would be able to identify exactly how many shots were fired, in what direction the suspect fled, and use some of their analytical tools and their industry expertise in court. Further, and lastly, I believe the last pro for this system is gunfire may only take one shot, or it may take a gunfire incident may only be one shot, or it may be several. However, as soon as ShotSpotter picks out the first shot, they evaluate it as a shot. They'll continue to listen to what else is going on, and they'll make the phone call to police and notify us about the actual discharge of the weapon. As more shots are coming in, or they can determine other information as they're listening to the area, they would be in a position to better alert us as responding officers to what actually is occurring there. Lastly, I look at the cons. This system would undoubtedly put additional demands on the very limited resources we as a police department have at this time. The fact that ShotSpotter is reporting that we have shots fired, and the police department is not in a position to respond quickly to those incidents, may in fact, in the end, provide a decreased public trust. As stated earlier, the system limitations cannot tell us who fired the weapon. They can tell us where, they can tell us how many shots, they can even tell us the direction, and the system is, without question, fantastic at that. But it does not help us actually put the gun in somebody's hand. Next, although we have not been able to confirm any issues with ShotSpotter, anytime we invest in a large-scale technology product like this, system dependability is always a concern or an issue for us, and we would probably have to undoubtedly go out and have site visits to further understand it, what the dependability real-time is for those deployments. Lastly, we look at costs. There is an initial startup fee. As I recall, it was about $80,000 as a startup. The annual subscription fee varies on how much of the city we in fact can cover. Again, that's an annual subscription fee. We would probably have to expand our locations eventually. That would be future subscription costs. And there is always a possibility for a change in payment or payment models. As stated, ShotSpotter came back with these. We provided them with a map. We provided them with data, as well as the areas that we felt their system would be best deployed. These areas are displayed, of course, in the colors. So to start out, again, the one-time startup fee is about $80,200. For 3.12 square mile coverage at about $65,000 per mile per year. The first geographic area was about $202,000 a year. For 1.54 square miles, we were looking at about $100,100. The next area, 1.26 square miles, would cost us about $81,000, $81,900 a year. The last area that we evaluated with ShotSpotter was about 1.10 square miles. Again, that's about $71,500. So to cover the four areas that we have here, which is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 8 square miles, we're talking about $456,300 annual. Again, that's a one-time service startup fee of $80,200. 1 year subscription for 7.02 square miles at $456,300. Grand total, if we chose to deploy ShotSpotter into those four areas, it would be about $536,500, and the annual 1 year subscription fee would be about $456,000. Those are my thoughts on the concept, sir. Any questions?
Excellent.
No questions here.
I have just a couple of comments, and I know our city manager in one of his former cities, Oakland, had this technology probably in earlier versions. So I'd like his insights, Vinny. I'll just say a couple things, and I want our city managers to speak, and then I want some ShotSpotter representatives to add anything that they think would add to the presentation that was made. So some other benefits that I see is I think sometimes when in the community they think they hear a shot, sometimes they don't really know, and so if we are in a position to send personnel, they have to cover a broad area to figure out where that is. Whereas with this triangulation technology, it's a much it's a much smaller footprint, and so in terms of getting there quick, and especially if something is still ongoing, I think that's a benefit. And then unfortunately in some of our communities, whether it be because of issues with concern over immigration or concern over retaliation or concern over PD never responds, I think sometimes people don't report shots, unfortunately, or we all, myself included, we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. Oh, it's not a gunshot. It's it's a car thing, or it's fireworks or something else, right? And so folks then don't end up making those calls. So clearly, I think that there are benefits has been raised, but definitely cost and other issues definitely are to be considered as well. Before I have the ShotSpotter representatives, City Manager Godinez, any recollections? I know you were doing public works and other activities there in Oakland at the time, but I know it's my understanding Oakland had then. I don't know if they still do this technology. Any recollections from then?
Yeah, I do remember. I think I was in a different role, so I was not privy to a lot of information. But I do remember that it was deployed in East Oakland in a in a pilot area, in a pilot area where they had the most activity. But I don't recall what happened after that. It was towards the end of my tenure there.
Okay.
And as I recall, when I left in 2009, we were feeling the pinch of the recession, and in fact, in Public Works, I remember reducing 123 positions out of my 900,
right,
and the whole city. So I don't know that it expanded. It certainly was not expanding when I left, but I do know that they rolled out what seemed to be certain targeted areas, and it wasn't citywide. It was sort of targeted areas in East Oakland, as I recall, but I don't remember the feedback.
Okay. Well, if we decide to continue to investigate this further, I do appreciate that staff is talking with other cities, because especially in the area of technology, it's evolving quickly. So I'm sure even what was done in Oakland a few years probably was good, but it's probably been enhanced since then in different cities, probably implemented at different points in time and have different situations on the ground. ShotSpotter, folks, if you want to come up and share additional insights for us, that'd be excellent.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you for being here.
Field any questions. My name is Gary Bunyard. I'm Senior Vice President of Public Safety Solutions with ShotSpotter. My associate here, Lydia Barrett, is with me, and I'm going to invite her in just a minute to tell you a little bit more about Oakland. She's very familiar with our current operation there with the Oakland Police Department. Based upon the conversation, the only thing that I would like to add is in an environment where across the nation, many of these troubled communities, I say troubled, and communities that are dealing with a high volume of gun violence, are seeing about 80% of the gunshots go unreported to 911. So law enforcement is only really gaining visibility into about 20% of the gunshot activity. And often that 20% is delayed as there's indecision and there's question on the part of the caller regarding should I call to maybe somebody else calling. And if I call, where do I tell law enforcement to go? Because I don't really know where this gunshot occurred. So we have found a number of agencies across the country see tremendous value by helping them more effectively deploy resources to that 80% that they otherwise are deaf to, if you will, and also providing them more precise information regarding the location and the ability to get on the scene much quicker for that 80% that is also reported to 911. We are working with close to 100 agencies across the country today. These are agencies like Sacramento, Fresno, Oakland, San Diego, San Francisco, but stepping out of the state of California, agencies like the City of New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Milwaukee, Minneapolis. I can go on, but my only point is a number of agencies are seeing tremendous value by having the information that we're able to give them so that they can more precisely and more proactively deploy the limited resources, which is so common with so many agencies across the country. That being the case, we would welcome the opportunity to facilitate whatever dialogue is appropriate between the police department here and other police departments around the country to understand the value, the return on investment that they're seeing. Today, over 50% of the agencies where we are installed, they are looking at expansion plans. They're looking at taking the technology in larger footprints across their city because they see the value and the value that the solution is providing them in combating gun violence. Last point I'd like to make, some of the costs associated with the proposal that was submitted earlier this year involved between 7 and an 8 square mile coverage area. Very rarely would we ever begin with a coverage footprint of that size. Typically, we would come in with what we would refer to typically as a pilot. Might be 3 or 4 square miles, zeroing in on the area that's the highest priority for the agency, and really work with you very closely to evaluate the technology and the service, help you establish best practices for taking advantage of this information, and allow you to assess whether or not you would expand that footprint moving forward. So felt that was an important point to make when looking at the kind of financials that were up on the monitor.
Very
Lydia?
helpful. Thank you.
And I'll step aside and invite Liddy to offer just a quick update on the City of Oakland.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you. And I might speak very quickly to a few of the other California cities. We're actually in 12 California cities and counties right now. Most recently expanded and took on Sacramento County as a brand new customer who's coupling up with Sacramento PD, the city in a joint area that they're going to be working on together. So that's a really interesting scenario for us. The City of Oakland has been a longtime customer. Thank you, sir. I'm glad you were familiar with it. They since that early deployment that you're talking about have now expanded 4 times, almost 17 square miles, essentially covering all of the Oakland Flats area. And it has been made a significant impact in the way that the policing is being able to be done in that city in terms of them being able to address gun violence. Many of our California cities you'll be familiar with. They range from large San Francisco, Oakland, San Diego, to more mid-sized cities like Salinas. Salinas, we implemented last year there. As you all know, they had probably a sky record gun-related, gang-related outdoor gun violence and homicide rate in 2015, almost up to 40 in a city the size of 19 square miles. It was significant, and then went down last year to 36. Just this year so far, they're at 26, and they have executed a very comprehensive gun violence program. They covered 7 square miles of their city, all their hot spots, so they could do a very targeted approach in that city and really having some real success with it. Richmond, California, San Pablo, even small cities like San Pablo and East Palo Alto. Sacramento also, and Stockton and Fresno have been significant customers for us. Sacramento doubled last year their coverage size, just added another 2 square miles. Fresno doubled this year, and we expect them to be up to almost 15 square miles by the end of the year. And hopefully within the next several weeks, we'll be able to announce 2 more California cities on board. So thank you for the opportunity. We appreciate it, Chief and Commander and a council member. We appreciate it. Happy to answer any other
Great.
questions.
I do have a couple questions, and I'll open it up to staff or folks from the department as well if they have questions. I know, I mean, clearly there's going to be more data, an opportunity to go address it quicker. But is it going to help us solve crimes? I know that was an issue raised in the presentation, and a good focus group is always your wife, and her with me on all these stats is okay. I get how many crimes or shots there are, but how many crimes are we solving? Can somebody from the company speak to how this technology will help us solve crimes or prevent future crimes?
Yes, sir. Several factors worth mentioning. By being able to more precisely mobilize resources more precisely to the point of the gunshot and quicker, the agencies often seeing a very specific increase in the number of witnesses that they're able to interview by getting to the location faster. They're also often able to collect more evidence often in the form of shell casings, as was referenced earlier. By collecting more shell casings, the ATF has rolled out a program called NIBIN. NIBIN gives the agency the ability to submit shell casings for analysis to look at essentially a fingerprint, if you will, that are on the shell casing left by the the firearm. By linking shell casings, agencies are often able to connect various crimes or connect shell casings to various incidents around the city, significantly aiding law enforcement in investigating cases and tying various incidents together that are otherwise appear to be totally unrelated. We're also finding in a number of municipalities the sheer presence of law enforcement showing that they're mobilizing resources to 100% of the gunshot activity in the neighborhood, not only builds community trust in law enforcement, but serves as a deterring factor for the bad guys. And we're seeing some areas where gun crime is going down for a variety of factors, including the deterring factor that the law enforcement agency believes the technology, the service, and their presence in the neighborhood is providing for that community.
Another question I have is probably visually you send to PD some type of visual record of where the shot or shots were. Are the shots recorded? Can you speak to what type of information is provided, a minute or so after that this occurs?
Great question. When our sensors detect a gunshot, our software immediately analyzes the gunshot, one, to classify whether or not we believe it is in fact gunshot versus fireworks or a backfired engine, that type of thing. We're also analyzing through triangulation the precise location of the gunshot. Our Incident Review Center is evaluating that information and adding an additional human review, if you will, to make sure we're giving the agency the best data we can. We evaluate that information, we put a dot on the map, we take a recording of the gunshot incident, and we send that to an officer in the field via their smartphone, their mobile laptop, or to the 911 center, and we do all that within about 30 or 40 seconds of when the gunshot was fired. So the focus there is getting that dot on the map in an audio recording of that incident to the officer in the field as quickly as possible. After that, however, we can provide a variety of additional bits of information. That may be, is it one or multiple shooters? Does it appear to be a high-capacity weapon? As mentioned earlier, if the shooter was on the move, what direction are they heading? There's a variety of forensic data that we're able to provide to supplement that information. We also can provide very detailed forensic reports that will get into if there's multiple shots fired, a timeline and a map of the precise location of each gunshot, and down to very precise points in time when each gunshot was fired. These are detailed forensic reports that are admissible in court, along with expert witness support that we provide, all as a part of the service, to help with the judicial process that may follow the investigation.
Excellent. Any other questions from? Let's see. We'll go to the councilman and then city manager, and then if
City
there's
manager,
anybody.
go ahead. I can wait.
Oh, thank you, Councilman. I have a
Very
question.
courteous.
In terms of the recording that gets forwarded, along with the point on a GPS map,
Yes, sir.
since it's being triangulated, which of the microphones would you use to? Would it be the one that's the loudest, closest?
Great question. We triangulate based upon 3 or 4 sensors collecting the data. If we do not have more than 3 sensors collecting the data, then we do not treat it as a gunshot. The recording that is sent to the agency is from the sensor that was closest to the actual gunshot. We can also provide, however, the recorded, the audio recording, if you will, from each of the sensors.
That was my question. So it's really the one that's closest.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
I wanted to wait before there was I'd like to hear the full presentation from them before I talk. That's why I didn't want to have any questions I didn't have any questions at the moment, but since we're here, just quickly, so the recorder is constantly on, your microphone, the way it picks up, is that what, correct?
The sensors are monitoring.
The sensors?
Waiting for a high impulse blast type noise. They start recording in the information that we collect and provide to the agency is 2 seconds before the actual gunshot up to 4 seconds after. So it's a very narrow bit of acoustic information tied to that gunshot incident.
Okay, so that's the technology. It's a sensor that gets triggered by the noise,
Yes.
and then it starts. Okay, just that's what I wanted to know. It's just very detailed things, but that's why I wanted to wait for a different type of presentation. But
No,
thank
we
you.
didn't know that. That's good. That's a little bit like the body-worn cameras. You know, they're kind of always on, but then for when you do need to put it on or turn it on, it also records like a
Because
a
we
few
have a lot
seconds
of
before.
illegal fireworks here. Also, I
Yes,
mean, we're known for that here.
Right.
So, I was just wondering how it's going to distinguish. I'm sure that the pitch, the sound, or the level or something that you guys have it set at would distinguish it. And I wasn't sure if there was a microphone on all the time or something. I don't know how it works. Because is there, you get sued over recording something that you shouldn't be recording. But then again, if it's in public, then there's no expectation of privacy. So, yeah, just all these things start going through my head when I start hearing about this kind of stuff or thinking about these things. But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. Any questions from anybody else around the table? Chief?
Yes, just
Yeah.
so what was the time frame? I didn't get a chance to speak to my staff. When did we first look at this here at Santa Ana in terms of in concept?
If my recollection is correct, and I would have the date on that original proposal to you, I want to say I think it was early last spring, so early in the spring of 2016.
Of 2016. Sounds about right. And the numbers reflective here in the presentation that we saw, against scalable to size pilot, are those within the ballpark?
Yes,
Okay.
those are still correct. And
Okay.
when Santa Ana PD originally put those 4 areas together, they actually prioritized those and said we wouldn't consider doing all of these at once, but this is just, in 4 particular areas that were of concern to us. They were originally considering just a 3 to 4 square mile pilot area.
Okay. And I'll wait if you have any further direction, but what I'd like is, if we're looking to explore further, is to have a presentation to the entire police command staff, or at least the senior
that's a good
management staff. Give us an opportunity to ask some additional questions, bring investigations command staff in there, and ask some additional questions. And also, where has this technology been admissible in court? And that I know Fresno is one of your users and is expanding. I respect that chief up there, and I'd like to reach out to him and ask him a few questions as well in terms of usability. Yeah.
Very quickly, just on the court, a lot of California courts and prosecutors do use it. San Francisco, Alameda, Contra Costa County, Sacramento County, Fresno, San Joaquin. So it's set a lot of precedent in California courts, which is very good, I think.
So we would certainly encourage you to speak to your peers and provide you any information regarding any agency that's using our service, and would welcome the opportunity to come present to your command staff. Obviously, we just scratched the surface. You all asked some excellent questions, so we scratched a lot of good surfaces, but would welcome the opportunity to tell the whole story.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a very good idea, Chief. Just some closing remarks I'll make. For me, because in my different roles, I've seen a lot of technology. Some work, some don't. Some are expensive. Some get renewed, some don't. For me, when I hear that cities are expanding their area, that shows that that agency is seeing some value. So I think that speaks well for this program. Also, I know that one of the individuals that helps you promote this is a very distinguished former state senator, Dean Flores, and welcome to Santa Ana. I know he knows how to get bills and grants through Sacramento, and so maybe in terms of helping bring down some of these costs, we might be able to partner with you, Senator, and the company on possibly getting some state support. And then another reason for me why I did want this presentation here now, and why I do want staff to continue to look at it, is the last 2 calendar years, I think everybody knows, minus our city manager. We had comparing 2017 versus, no, I'm sorry, 2015 versus 2016, depending upon what time in the calendar you looked at, over the course of a year, about a 500% increase in reported shootings. So the number of shootings that we have in our community is high, and there's been, concern in the past that we're either not reporting accurately or following up, or actually, this relates to another key point, because I was going to ask for it as well. It also got to the point that last year, about this time, the department started saying, you know what, we can't vouch for the quality of the data because they didn't like the numbers, that we're no longer going to report those numbers to the community. And there was about a 2-3 page internal memo that was shared to the council, and others saying that, because with respect to the reporting of shots, some grandma calling, trying to figure out where it is. It's around 4th of July. They don't know. It's maybe a business owner. It's a place that's close, a place that's far. And so that's also to the point that we had, internal PD folks saying that the information available wasn't strong or valid enough to feel like we should be comfortable reporting it. I think we're back to, reporting those because, all information is good information. And so technologies like this hopefully will give the department more confidence in what our shots are not. I think clearly if we implement something like this, the number of shootings reported are going to go up. But I think in terms of public trust and being able to have information, I think it would be helpful. And then my final comment is that, the world is changing. And it's, moving towards technology. It's moving towards real time. It's moving towards having data go, directly to cell phones. And so I want to keep with that wave of technology rather than in old technology. As one good example, but on another front, I know as we've been having issues with the illegal dispensaries. I know PD work with code enforcement. And the city attorney's office to have these very special doors that are, being used for that North Grand facility, and it's quality, state of the art, and it's making a difference. And so, it's good to kind of pilot these things and see what works and what's not. But I do appreciate that the chief, thinking about bringing this to a broader team in the department, and in conjunction with you and with our city manager staff, I do want to continue to explore this idea of a League of Cities overall program on public safety. And I know they're aware and they're interested as well. But obviously, that involves coordination. I do want to thank all the representatives from ShotSpotter that came out. Feel free to stay a little bit longer if you need a commute back to your home city. Feel free as well, and we will stay in contact. See no other questions or comments. We're going to move to the next item, but as a courtesy to some of our constituents, I did get a request to speak from Connie Hamilton. Welcome, Connie. And then we'll go to our other items, which are homelessness related.
Hello, thank you for letting me speak. We got held up by traffic, which is typical in Santa Ana. But yeah, I wanted to ask a couple of things. First of all, Commander, you know that we've been trying real hard to correct the situation over at California Lodge Suites. Are there any updates on that? We were wondering, because there is just so much riffraff hanging around there. And of course, our neighborhood entrance is right there. And so I don't know where those people are going to go if they close it, but actually, as long as they stay out of our area, because it's really bad. Needles, and Kathleen can tell you about it.
This item is not on the agenda, so maybe we could give a very brief reply, or if not afterwards, there will be individuals here.
I said it was non-agenda.
Right, but even if it's not on the agenda, we can't have too long of a back and forth conversation for Brown Act purposes.
Mr. Chair, the only thing I can say is that the matter is under litigation, so it's probably best at the moment not to speak about it, but the city will issue a press release once the matter is resolved.
Okay. My only other issue, I'm wondering about the status of handling the illegal fireworks. I know people have talked about trying to do something with it. I think Jose was
Yeah,
on
we
it.
had a start last year, and this time we have more time.
Oh, yeah, more time, but are we really going to be able to make a dent? It's what I'm wondering, because the neighbors are really, really concerned about it.
You know, this item too is not in the agenda, but let's put that on for one of the next two agendas because there's been other conversations that have occurred
Yes.
since then. So we'll agendize that for an upcoming meeting.
Thank you. That's all I ask. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming, Connie. Really appreciate it. Next, we have item number 6. We have the City Attorney's Office that has a presentation regarding review and possible action regarding a draft ordinance on abandonment of homeless individuals in Santa Ana.
Chair and council members, good evening. What we have for you today is a quick verbal update on the concept and the idea of drafting an ordinance on abandonment of homeless individuals here in the city of Santa Ana. We do have an interdepartmental team comprised of various members, PEDs included, City Attorney's Office, Parks and Recreation. All of this came out as a result of all of our efforts tied to addressing homelessness within our city. As a result of having the courtyard here in our civic center and having mental health institutions and other services that are provided for the homeless, we've experienced a significant increase in the number of homeless individuals that are either migrating to the city of Santa Ana or that are being brought into the city of Santa Ana or transported into the city of Santa Ana. So one of the items that we're working on as part of this interdepartmental team is looking at any opportunities in which we can mitigate these impacts. And one of these opportunities is the ability to implement an ordinance that would prohibit any agency or contract agency to come to the city of Santa Ana and basically come to the city limits and abandon individuals. We are still having those discussions and as an interdepartmental team because there are some issues to contend with when implementing such an ordinance, such as the enforcement. What do we do when we basically catch another agency or a law enforcement agency that basically abandons individuals, whether it's at the Civic Center or at the city limits, or they bringing them here to one of our facilities that we have that is managed by the county. What do we do when individuals are brought forward to the city to receive services? And if they're provided with housing, do we now allow them to come into the city of Santa Ana? Another thing, too, that we're discussing is basically the how do we apply such an ordinance? Is it specific only to the Civic Center? Is it applicable to the entire city? So these are the types of discussions that we're having as a committee, as a team, but we would like to have your feedback as a body to give us some recommendations and see if there's an interest to move something forward to the full city council.
Very good. And I do know the staff and the city attorneys did draft something, so I know that there is a draft available, and I know there was
Correct.
interest in bringing it directly to the council, but given all the other items and the benefits and challenging with this kind of policy, I did think it would be good to bring it here. So that is very good. I do have a couple of points and questions. Did you have anything?
I just wanted to see
Councilmember?
what the staff has. Do you have a bullet point sheet or where are we
No,
at?
but we
Or
can
you
make
just want-
that draft available to the committee
Yes,
or to the
send it
council
to committee
if there's a
members
desire. Absolutely.
so we could review it.
Uh-huh.
You know, the way I see it, there's probably some short-term and long-term items, but a couple of things I'll share with you. Number one, you know, a lot of this stuff is still kind of developing real time. You know, there's the activities on the river where folks are getting relocated to other areas, and some of it is coming back to our neighborhood and streets, and so we have that going on. You have the county that has this homelessness czar that is putting out information. The one thing I saw yesterday, and you probably got it as well, council member, we got various newsletters, I think, from the county on their, I think they call it their continuum of care or whatever it might be. There are various attachments there. One set of attachments are resources in North, Central, and South. And I know both the councilmember and I separately have met with the county homelessness czar, and the idea was as resources get developed in one of these areas, that homeless would be sent to resources in those areas, right? Good idea, good theory if the services and housing is there, but obviously we're lacking in both, but mainly in housing. Well, I saw the handouts, the general handouts in the presentation that was emailed yesterday to us. And so, for example, there's a resource guide for homeless individuals for North, Central, and South. Well, all of them really directly, because it's the most important thing, highlight that there's 400 beds available at the courtyard. And so if I'm, good citizen or good Samaritan, somebody from the interfaith community or a city or whoever, and if I see homeless in my area, I'm going to say, oh, I got this resource thing. All the housing is in Santa Ana. Go to the courtyard. Well, guess what? Really, the way I view it, the courtyard is full or has very limited capability, and probably any excess capability should be for our residents. And then two, and I've raised this public at a council meeting and also in a letter to the supervisors. The courtyard is not built to code. There's no, fire sprinkler items in there. It is not, it doesn't have an occupancy permit to serve as a homeless shelter. It's not ADA compliant. There's no temperature controls. There's no walls. There's just a number of safety issues there that are problematic. It's not earthquake proof. The operational standards of how people get in and out, very different than the much better model of the Kramer facility. So to keep kind of countywide sending people to that spot, whether it be by vehicle or a bus ticket or a referral, is not good. And so, there I think we need to reach out to the county and say, hey, if these are resource things for your area, maybe that ought not to be on there, or it ought to be there's limited capacity and call to see if there's availability. Related to just better communications like that, the initial thing, maybe even before stronger measures might be to tell other public agents in the county, stop sending folks over here, especially if it's without checking if there is room, because I think too often it's just the assumption is there is service or space or the civic center there, and so Santa Ana will handle it, but then we bear the police cost, like the cleanup cost, a number of impacts, and that is not good. I think that down the road, if and when we do set this kind of policy, which I do support, I think you could have fines, you can have a start of warnings, but I think even just having the policy will have its own deterrent effect, because I don't think there's going to be any police officer that's going to want to be recorded, because we do have a number of cameras recorded being in violation of a city law. And I think that would be problematic for the individual's reputation, and the city's reputation. So I think there would be a deterrence. And so that might be the other thought as we continue really to figure out how to refine what this policy looks like, that we figure out some type of communication to all these agencies just to say, hey, you may think we have unlimited services in space. We don't. We also want just communication, even if there is space. And I know part of the ordinance thought maybe somebody needs to be notified of such a transport. So I think there are a number of things like that I think would be helpful. Yep.
No, and I was going to mention that those are the types of discussions that we're having, is how do we communicate back to these agencies, and how do they communicate with us as a city, letting us know, hey, we're transporting certain individuals, and when do we say yes and when do we say no? So one of the items that we were toying around with is if they're able to bring an individual to the city, but they can prove that there's at least a 60-day stay as to where they
Right.
can
Right.
reside or they can live, and they can provide proof. Maybe that's one of the instances where you allow them to bring in folks into the city. Another instance in which we would allow folks to come into the city is if they transport them to Santa Ana for a specific service, but then at the end of the day, once the service ends, they take them back to the place where they originally picked up the individual. So we're working with the group, and definitely we'll take your comments and see where we can solidify this ordinance. The one area, again, it goes back to public safety, is how do you mitigate the impacts when you have other agencies? And from a symbolic perspective, we can communicate with with other law agencies, but it's something that we just need to have a little bit more discussion with our public safety personnel as to how best to address that.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because if you have, let's say, an officer from another city in South County, which I know we've had on film before, and they come out and I speak to the gentleman who's cleaning the Civic Center on the weekends. Poor guy's out there 6-7 days a week. And he tells me this is what's going on, and then we look up the film, and there it is. And there's 53 cameras, so thanks to Homeland Security in that area, in downtown, and they're all over the place. And it's tough when you have an officer bringing someone here, let's say a homeless person, and they're just trying to get them out of their area. They're going to tell him, well, just say that you're looking for food, and this is where I know where the food is, this is where the help is, and I'm going to leave you here. And it turns into a citizen assist. They're not abandoning anyone or dumping someone off. So that's going to be the tough one. But I say we still continue with this, no matter what. We also do a press release. We make notification to all the PDs, to the hospitals, that this is what's happening down here in Santa Ana. This is the rules, to try to deter some of that, because if not, it's going to just continue. It's going to get worse. It's already really bad. It's gotten really bad over the last 4 years. Ever since that, and I'll continue to say it, ever since that the service center, or the courtyard as they call it down there at the bus station, ever since that was put there, this place has been a disaster. It's practically, doubled. And then from there, once we started doing enforcement, they moved to the riverbed, and this is what you have now. Now that they're clearing out the riverbed, guess what's happening? Coming back here. So, I would like bullet points, and maybe I can continue
Absolutely.
to. There's a study group or something. I would, please let me know. I would like to be involved in that.
Absolutely.
I think that's the
City
thing to
Manager?
do, Councilmember. We'll bring the sort of a framework, not necessarily the draft ordinance, but just sort of framework of the deal points, if you will, of the ordinance, and then bring it here for input.
And those cameras that are out there, they're monitored at the PD, and they're pretty good. But they just need to know that these agencies they need to know that they're being filmed when they come downtown.
Right.
Everyone at the county knows that these cameras are out there. That's not a secret. And then we have our own stuff downtown too. In the question regarding, if they're bringing them to the Civic Center, or are they dropping them off at the edge of Santa Ana? I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
We need to continue to talk that one out. But that's all I have on that for right now.
Very,
Mr.
very
Chair.
good. Excellent. So we'll continue the conversation as the city manager has suggested. The next item number 7, is an item that I asked to be added on. 2 parts. I want to give a mini update on what Sacramento is doing with its ordinance on aggressive panhandling. But before I mention that, I was interested myself in knowing what current city laws or ordinances, if any, we have regarding panhandling, and whether we do any enforcement related to that.
Yes, thank you. So the closest we have is a municipal code section 10-96, loitering, obstructing passage, and signs. It's really intended for that person who is maybe at a location where they're congregating and wanting to assemble and lead to protest or not leave an area after being advised by the police. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't specifically address
Directly.
aggressive panhandling, right? There is a penal code section, 647C, which is specific on begging and soliciting that's on the books. Not one that I would say is real commonly known and or enforced or used. So that's where we're at here locally. I did look at a couple of other jurisdictions. Boulder, Colorado. These are all municipal code city ordinances. They have specifically aggressive begging prohibited, $50 fine. Eugene, Oregon, not specific to panhandling. They have other provisions on blocking the sidewalk and, again, refusing to leave. $500 fine. Fort Collins, Colorado, panhandling specific, $100 fine. Riverside, actually, I've got a copy here available online. Pretty robust and very specific on aggressive solicitation and panhandling. That's a two-pronged approach. First is a fine of $250 if it's handled as an infraction. Essentially, the officer would give a citation and send the person on their way. Or, and it really is specific based on the fact pattern that the officer is dealing with, they could choose to write a more detailed report and then book that person, and that then becomes handled as a misdemeanor. It's a $1,000 fine. So that's and it specifically addresses aggressive behavior of the person. Seattle, Washington, again, specific on pedestrian interference, as they call it, a $500 fine. You have information on Sacramento?
Yeah,
Specific?
just a couple of thoughts. I think in Santa Ana, we're seeing, just because of the increase in homelessness. I mean, I saw probably 4 today. We're seeing more homeless at intersections, by freeways, and literally now no longer on the sidewalk, but on the street and the median. And clearly it's not safe for them, or it's uncomfortable for the drivers, or with all the pedestrian fatalities that we have and other issues. You really want to minimize, I think, people interaction near areas like that. We also have, and not homeless related, but I know that for Bristol in particular, because it's so well known in Southern California, you're having an increasing number of situations where folks from out of the area come with large placards saying that there's funeral expenses for some child, and they're literally walking up and down Bristol in between cars while they're parked. And it's happened on numerous occasions. And again, it's the kind of thing that needs to be addressed. I saw the Sacramento ordinance, and it caught my attention for a few reasons. Number one, in terms of size, complexity of the city, demographics, etc. They also have a river and many issues like us. They're a good, similar, not a neighbor, but a good example of issues and resolutions to it. So they have been considering something. They started a few months ago, and actually it's back on in a revised format tonight at their city council meeting, which is why it's really is just more of an update. The overall basis of their ordinance is that panhandling cannot occur aggressive, and now they also are saying intrusive, which is another good item, that it can't be within 30 feet of sensitive areas. So near banks, near intersections, maybe near schools, and that kind of makes sense too. I mean, we have, like in any community, also a good number of seniors or young folks, and so if you're going to an ATM or coming back and you have somebody being aggressive, as they can be, asking for money, that creates issues. safety issues, reputation issues, economic development issues, et cetera. So I kind of like that idea. One of the tricky things is always, is it a crime? Do you assess a fine? But I think sometimes you're just having a tool so that PD others can say, hey, there's an ordinance saying you can't do it. Then you have somebody to tell that individual rather than somebody using their judgment that you should or shouldn't be doing something. So I think, irregardless of what the penalty might be, that there's some value just to having something on the book. So as we continue to have these issues, we have to explore it. Related to this too, and maybe an item for our next agenda, because we have that as an item as well. I know through 911 and reports, we've been hearing big picture numbers of how many calls for service there are that are homeless related. It'd be nice to have a year to date on what that is and a breakdown of the categories. I know Councilmember Villegas was the first to ask this question. It was a great question. I think from January to June, I forget what the number was that was presented, but I think there was like 6,000 calls for service. And many of them assaults, many of them with folks that are, intoxicated or have weapons. I mean, there's a lot of altercations happening out there, and I think we want to assess, that kind of data as well, so that as we move forward with these other items, we can say, hey, look, we have had these kind of incidents and assaults, and here are the numbers, and so we'd have the data to go with that story. So that's why I'm interested in looking at this situation. And more and more, you have people that just are uncomfortable coming to the downtown or going to certain areas, and it's not good for folks. I mean, starting with our own library, I'm sure we've seen a humongous reduction in the number of children that go to the library just because children themselves and their parents don't feel comfortable going there. It's frankly unsafe, so I don't blame them, and we have that situation elsewhere. And so as we are concerned about economic development, revenue, sales tax, property tax, et cetera, folks need to feel safe in our community. And if we can have a minimized number of aggressive or intrusive situations at sensitive areas, I think there's a real good logic to that. Councilmember Villegas, any
Thank you, Mr.
additional
Chair.
points?
I too have seen this aggressive panhandling on film, well, in person, but I started getting tagged on Facebook. And they show me this film on a couple of guys out there with signs and getting bold, walking right through the middle of the street, right there on Main and MacArthur, and then on Bristol also. And then let's see what else. Yeah, it's just many different areas. And also another thing, when I'm on duty over at at the county, at the old courthouse, you see a lot of these folks. They know where to go ask for money. And when there's these weddings going on, when the recorder's office is open, to conduct a wedding at the wedding services there at the old courthouse on a specific weekend, these people know to go ask for money, and these guys give them cash, so they'll leave the wedding party alone, just make them go away. These guys they're not stupid. And then they end up calling me, and then it's just one guy, and so I don't do that anymore. But I know that exists over there, so we do need an ordinance, a strong ordinance. And so if we can get something together, put together, make our own, maybe we ought to start off a little strong, not too much, and if the court wants us to bring it down, well, then bring it down. But we can't go easy on this. It's got to have some teeth. But I also would like to see that if we could warn them, hey, you know what, you can't be doing that. Oh, I always believe in giving someone a chance. Hey, don't be doing this. If I see you doing it again, then you do it. Then you go ahead and sign them for it, or you take them. Depends on the level. But I've also seen some of these panhandlers get aggressive. Hey, give me $1, or hey, give me $5. So this is all you got. They don't want any, food. They don't want something to drink. They want your cash. So definitely in support of having an ordinance here in the city, and something from medium to strong. I would recommend that. But we do have a problem. And it's on Facebook. This stuff's a lot of comments on there too. I noticed, and they start tagging people. Hey, what are you doing in your city? And well, we need to do something. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And I think just the issue grows. I think as there's more and more folks doing this, word gets out that, hey, I got my money by doing this, and people left me alone. So the number, the activity amount's been growing, which is why, I mean, in some ways, in terms of urgency, I think this is becoming more urgent than the dumping, because, the dumping, even though that occurs, I don't know that it occurs as often, or I think there's some communication things we can do with the county and other agencies that would be a step before a different type of enforcement. City Manager, did you want to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I agree, by the way. I think the dumping ordinance needs to have, it's more complex, so it needs more thought and more vetting before that.
Yeah, and then there's no model. That may be the first ever, whereas with this other item, Sacramento, I think it's cutting edge because they're looking at everything, and again, with a lot of complexity, so I think that's a good starting point. And then some of the other cities that the chief mentioned.
But I agree that the panhandling one is one where lots of cities have adopted their version of it. And at ICMA, there were 3 cities that were reporting on their efforts to get a handle on the homelessness crisis in their areas. And this was one of the things that at least 2 out of 3, stated that they adopted to try to gain control of the right-of-way. And so I remember one discussion was just trying to tell people where they could and could not do it. I don't remember if they discussed aggressive panhandling. I think the other one did address it. But you're right, there's models that we can talk to. And I think there's a couple of things. I think Councilmember Villegas, you were talking about, sort of a low, medium, and strong. I think that the very first thing that we should probably accomplish with this ordinance is where is it allowed, where is panhandling allowed, and where isn't it? And then separately, we should deal with aggressive panhandling as a separate issue in that ordinance as well. And that's, so we have to give it some thought, but I think it's a toolbox that other cities were presenting at the International City Managers Association as one of many tools that they've implemented over a course of 2 or 3 years to try to help them. Of course, this is one of the early things that they did, but later on, of course, they had to deal with housing and emergency sheltering, especially a couple of these cities were in areas where winters are cold. And they had to deal with, real life and death situations. But we'll work on it, and we'll bring an outline as we make progress to this committee for review and for input.
Excellent. Anything else on this item? No. But excellent discussion. Next, we have committee member comments, and we might as well combine that with future agenda items. Councilmember Villegas.
Just wanted to say on this one more thing on this the homeless issue and the transient problem and people getting dropped off here. This also increased the number of calls for medical service to the hospital. Yes or no? You're wasting people's time. There's other folks out there that could use the services instead of doing this. And they don't. We have someone from the Orange County Fire Authority here, and the chief's not here today. Is that correct?
No, sir, I'm sorry, he's off today. So.
Okay. So when they respond to a call, they're what is the process there with the transient?
With the transient situation, it's actually a little bit more difficult because sometimes we're actually.
Can you use the microphone? Thanks for the record. Thank you.
With the transient situation, it's a little bit more difficult because a lot of times they are on cell phones that you can't trace, and they'll go to one area, call, and then when we come to look for them to assist them, they're not there. They'll call back and say, no, I'm down the street. So we're running around chasing them, and that becomes a huge problem for our Station 75. We run at least 10 calls a day to the courtyard. Easy. And as far as panhandling, a lot of times it increases our vehicle versus pedestrian problem, which we already have in this city. So it is an issue. I know Chief Black is pulling stats for everybody, so I'm sure the next time that the next committee meeting, he'll have those for everyone.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Soto. Appreciate it. That's all I wanted to add. And, thank you, staff, for all the hard work you're doing on this. And please feel free to reach out or send me an email so we can continue the input and discussion on the items for today.
No,
Thank you,
good,
Mr.
good.
Chair.
Good additions. Thank you, Councilmember Villegas. For me, just thank you for everybody that participated. Thank you for our representatives from ShotSpotter that came out. Items for the future, we'll coordinate with the chief, but a presentation regarding the breakdown of calls for service that are homelessness related would be good. Also, it's been a while since we got a presentation on code enforcement. What are the big issues, priorities, and numbers? I think that would be great. We'll coordinate on when to bring back the abandonment item, as well as the panhandling item. So we'll coordinate with staff on that. And then at our next meeting or the following, it would be good to start having a conversation on fireworks awareness, enforcement, etc. With that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.